Hello, pretty people. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If it's your first time here, kindly subscribe. Hit the notification bell, like, comment, share to your friends for them to get helped as well. And by the way, it's been a minute. It's been long since I last did an analysis of a book, and today I'm back with a book. Actually, it's a play, and I love plays, by the way. It's a play by Samuel Beckett, and it's titled Waiting for Godot. Now, I know you must have come across this book, and that's why you're here. And if you've not, maybe you can get it from us here as we talk about this book. So, what is this book? We're going to have a brief introduction about this book. And Waiting for Godot is a play by Samuel Beckett. And it's one of the most famous works of the Absurdist theatre, or the theatre of absurd, which is a movement that emerged after World War II and explored themes of existentialism, meaninglessness, and the absurdity of human existence. The play follows two characters, Vladimir and Estragon, as they wait in vain for someone named Godot, who never arrives. Now, the interactions with each other, that is Vladimir and Estragon, as well as with Pozzo and Lucky, we're going to come across these characters as we explore this book, and a boy who serves as Godot's messenger. These interactions highlight the futility of human existence, the passage of time, and the cyclical nature of life. Now, this play lacks a conventional plot. Actually, it lacks a conventional plot. It's structured in two acts, and each act mirrors the other. Now, Act 2 mirrors Act 1, and this one is an emphasis on stagnation and repetition. And through its minimalist setting, fragmented dialogue, and ambiguous symbolism, Waiting for Godot raises profound philosophical questions about human purpose and the search for meaning. We go ahead and look at the plot of the play Waiting for Godot. And the play begins, or rather opens, in the evening on a country road with a lone, lifeless tree where Estragon struggles with removing his boot. Vladimir enters, initiating a seemingly trivial conversation which reveals that they are waiting for Godot, though they do not know exactly who Godot is or why they are waiting for him. They are unsure of the details. Now, their dialogue is cyclical and repetitive, and it reflects their confusion and lack of direction. Estragon struggles with memory loss, and Vladimir attempts to recall past events but is also unsure. Now, they discuss a lot of things, also discuss about, hanging themselves, but they do nothing at the end of it all. So to pass time, they engage in word games, storytelling, and philosophical debates. Now, amidst their conversation, I don't know whether you call him Pozzo or Pojo, something like that, because it's kind of French. Amidst their conversation, Pojo, who is an arrogant and commanding man, enters leading his slave, Lucky, by a rope. But then who does that? Anyway, so Pozzo abuses Lucky, and he treats him like property. He boasts about his wealth and control, but contradicts himself frequently. He claims to be on his way to the market to sell Lucky. Pozzo first orders Lucky to dance, and he again orders him to think, quote unquote. Therefore, Lucky delivers a long, incoherent monologue showcasing the breakdown of rational thought, and after Lucky thinks, quote unquote, they both leave. And some moment after leaving, a boy arrives, and this boy claims to be a messenger from Godot. This boy tells Vladimir and Estragon that Godot will not come today, but surely he will tomorrow. They engage the boy in a conversation, and the boy leaves. After the boy leaves, Estragon suggests leaving, but again they remain standing. The curtain the curtain falls as they continue to wait, and this highlights their entrapment in an endless cycle. And that is how Act 1 ends. Now, on to Act 2. You realize that Act 2 is kind of a repetition of what happened in Act 1. So let's go on and we see what happens in Act 2. So in Act 2, the setting remains the same. But now the tree, look at the changes. The tree now has a few leaves. And this could suggest the passage of time. Vladimir enters first and notices the change about the tree. But Estragon, upon arrival, remembers nothing at all from the previous day. Remember, Act 2 is happening the following day. Okay. Now, Estragon's boots, which he had left behind, are now back, but he doesn't recognize them. He claims he was beaten again during the night, but cannot recall by whom. Also in Act 1, he says that he was beaten. Vladimir and Estragon try to pass the time as before, and they engage in the same nonsensical discussion. All the discussions are just nonsensical, cyclical, are repetitive, etc. Pojo and Lucky reappear, but now, look at the change. Pojo is blind, and Lucky is mute. Pojo, once confident and in control, is now helpless, and he's relying on Lucky to guide him. This is the same man who was, commanding, who was in control in Act 1. Now he's become blind, and he's, depending on Lucky to guide him. Pojo no longer recognizes Vladimir and Estragon, and this could reinforce the theme of forgetfulness. He seems to have forgotten what was happening, or what had happened there the previous day. And when he is asked about time, Pojo declares time has stopped. Have you seen this thing, the existential themes? Time has stopped. Again, they leave. This time around, he's not thinking. Lucky does not think nor dance as he did in Act 1. And after they leave, the boy arrives again. The same boy who appeared in Act 1. So he delivers the same message. Godot will not come today, but he surely will tomorrow. And again, something also happens, that this boy denies meeting them before. And further, this could question the nature of time and reality. Because this boy says, I wasn't here yesterday. And they engage him in the similar discussion as it was in Act 1. And after the boy leaves, Vladimir and Estragon contemplate leaving, but remain standing. And this mirrors the end of Act 1. Their waiting continues, unchanged, unresolved. Curtain closes. That's the end of Act 2. Similar things, similar, flow of how things happened in Act 1. They appear, Vladimir and Estragon. Minutes later, some time later, Pojo and Lucky, they leave. Sometimes later, the boy. The same thing is happening in Act 2. So you've seen that this play lacks a conventional flow, a conventional plot. And, it has a kind of, a traditional flow. So I think it's easy to understand, by the way. It's easy to understand. And so we're going to go ahead and look at maybe the themes that appear in the play Waiting for Godot. So here are the themes that I was able to get from the book Waiting for Godot. They may not be, everything. I may not exhaust them, but at least I have tried to come up with them, and I hope they help you. Number 1 is the absurdity of human existence. Remember, the theater of the absurd looks at the existentialism. So, how absurd is the human existence? Now, this play embodies the absurdist theater, where traditional structures of meaning, logic, and resolution are absent. Vladimir and Estragon are waiting for Godot, who never arrives. And this mirrors, humanity's search for meaning in a seemingly indifferent universe. Their circular conversations, remember, their conversations are repetitive, circular. So these conversations emphasize the meaninglessness of life and the illusion of, of progress. So you could just explain on that, build on that, show how, human existence looks absurd, how there is meaningless of life, how there is the illusion of progress, etc. etc. I'm just going through them quickly so that I can just save on time. Number 2, there is memory struggle or forgetfulness. 1, a struggle forgets about, past events. Remember, he says he's been beaten. He's been beaten. In Act 1, he's been beaten. He doesn't know who beat him. In Act 2, the same, he's been beaten. And even in Act 2, he comes, he has forgotten that those boots were his. And he remembers nothing from what happened on the previous day. So we can see a struggle really struggling with memory. He forgets past events. While on the other hand, Vladimir attempts to hold on to memory, though he is often unsure. You could give that as an example of, forgetfulness and memory, or struggles of memory. Secondly, you could say that Pozzo no longer recognizes Vladimir and the struggle in Act 2. Remember, they had met in Act 1. But when he's asked about time, and he's like, the blind do not know about time. The blind has no sense of time. Time comes, time goes. Here, that, you'd see. He does not remember whether they met the two the previous day. The boy as well denies meeting them before. So, these themes suggest that identity and reality are unstable and unreliable. So you could give that as a theme. Number 3, you could say power and enslavement. You could maybe focus on enslavement, and you focus on 1, Pozzo and Lucky's relationship. 1, in Act 1, there is a lot of dominance and submission. Lucky is a slave, and a very obedient slave that he'll be told to dance and he dances. He'll be told to think and he delivers a very, 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 very nonsensical conversation. And on the other hand, Pozzo is the master, so there is enslavement. Pozzo is on the power side and Lucky is on the, slavery side. In Act 2, their roles shift. Pozzo becomes blind and he has to depend on Lucky. You see, there is some change of power. In some way, there is change of power, because now, he has to depend on Lucky for direction. Now, if you look at this change, it highlights the illusion of power, suggesting that authority is temporary and arbitrary. And also, there is enslavement. This man has enslaved, Lucky, who has to struggle with bags, and he has to be pulled by a rope. So you could give that as an example in our 3rd theme. Our 4th theme is maybe time and its meaninglessness. Maybe the passage of time, or time and its meaninglessness. Time in this play is very uncertain and cyclical, because we've seen the same events in Act 1 are the same events in Act 2, though with minor variations. So each act repeats the same events with minor variations. And secondly, the tree changes. This could suggest that time is passing, but there is nothing, not truly. There is no true true progress. Nothing truly progresses. The two characters and the additional characters, they forget the past. And this could question whether time is even real or if they are trapped in an endless loop. Because how comes you forget what happened yesterday? Estragon has forgotten. Pozo has forgotten. You don't know about Lucky because Lucky didn't talk in Act 2. The boy has forgotten. Is time real or is just an illusion? So you could begin questioning time and it's meaningless. How comes within one night this tree has developed some leaves? So you could begin to question time and how meaningless time could be. That's our fourth theme. And we look at our fifth theme, which is our last theme, S for now, which you could say maybe religious interpretations and, philosophical interpretations. To some extent, and mark my words, to some extent, Godot is seen as a representation of God. Because at some point, I think it's Vladimir who tells the struggle, Pozo will come and will be saved. Will be saved. So it kind of looks like a God, someone who offers salvation, someone who would save them. And by the way, it never arrives. So we could say maybe there is some, religious interpretation where, Godot is seen as a standing for God or salvation, which never comes. Now, Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert, Camus or Camus, the existentialist ideas that came from them. They suggest that life has no inherent meaning and that humans must create their own purpose. And, that could be philosophical interpretation about, the existentialist view. And again, futility of hope. In religion, there is a lot of hope, hope about, seeing tomorrow, hope about, things shall be okay. There is a repeated message there in the play. Godot will come tomorrow. Godot will come tomorrow. And we as human beings, we cling on to this hope sometimes. Things are not better today, but tomorrow, let's hope for the best. So we could say that the repeated message that Godot will come tomorrow suggests that humans cling to false hope despite evidence to the contrary. We can't see what is really happening. We can't see progress, but we have to cling on false hope. So for you to justify, to assert religious and philosophical interpretation, you could use those three examples: that Godot is seen as a representation of God, the existentialist view. Sorry, I'm kind of confusing it. And number 3, the futility of hope. Now, that brings us to the end of the themes that I was able to come up with. You can add as many themes as you can, if they are there. Okay? As I was looking at this book, there was a lot of symbolism, though ambiguous, but I just think it's wise if you just go through it. The symbolism both in Act 1 and in Act 2. This tree, for me, this tree represents a cycle of life and death, hope and change. Because in Act 1, it is barren, death, and in Act 2, it has leaves, life. Could also represent hope, but in Act 1, there is nothing. But in Act 2, hopefully, there will be something which really happens. There are leaves. It could also represent change. Change, you can explain change. The second one is Lucky's rope. It represents oppression. He's been oppressed. And the power dynamics. He's powerless. He's under someone. we can also look at the act of waiting for Godot. It represents, or rather symbolizes humanity's endless search for meaning and salvation. These people are waiting for someone who does not show up at the end of the day. He doesn't show up. So this could, symbolize humanity's endless search for meaning and salvation. We can also see the boy's message. Godot will come today, Godot will come tomorrow, he won't come today. This message could symbolize the empty promises that sustain human life. Human life is sustained by empty promises. And finally, what I was able to come up with in terms of symbolism is Peugeot's blindness. Today he's seeing, tomorrow he's blind. This could symbolize loss of direction in life. So I just hope up to that point you've been able to capture something. If you're preparing for your exams, I wish you the best. If you're just reading the book and you just felt you would maybe gain some knowledge about the book, thank you for coming through and watching the video. And thank you for being with me. If there be any question, you could, ask me in the comment section or email me at the email that will be shown at the end of the video. But here are 2 questions that you may come across in your exam. And in our next video, I must, look at that, or rather look at those questions. Question number 1. Why is waiting for Godot, why can it be characterized as a tragicomedy? So, you remember, tragic, or rather tragedy, and comedy. You remember the characteristics, the features, its nature. So you can mix the two and get to assert the claim that waiting for Godot is an example of, or rather it is considered a tragicomedy. Question number 2 could be, how is waiting for Godot an example of theater of the absurd? That one is very common because this play is a work of the absurdist theater. So how is waiting for Godot an example of theater of the absurd? So in our next video, be on the lookout. We're going to be looking at that. And I wish you all the best. Please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share the video to someone who you feel they could help. And by the way, those are my views. And you may disagree or agree with them. And I hope you just give me your feedback, negative and positive. It is accepted here. Have a wonderful time and all the best in whatever you're doing. Thank you for watching.